Welcome back to Curious Now from the Center for Medical Simulation. I'm Jenny Rudolph, an organizational behavior scholar interested in all the things that make us tick as we interact with each other, interact with ourselves, try to lead our teams, try to lead change in our organizations. And what are the things that kind of hang us up, and what are the things that let us use our authentic voice and power in the best possible way? Those are the things I'm really curious about. Today, we're going to start a series on the role of psychological safety in having your life be a people-growing machine for you. The philosophy of Curious Now up to this point is that we can treat both glitches and glimmers in everyday life as reps in our personal leadership gym. How do we lead from self? How do we bring our A game to difficult moments? How do we bring our A game to exhilarating moments? And one of the most powerful influences on that for many of us is how psychologically safe we feel. I'd like to start with a story, though. A number of years ago, I was rock climbing with a really good friend of mine, Lucy Wirtz, at Deer Leap in Vermont. And Deer Leap was one of my favorite climbing locations. You climb up a rather steep trail, not for long, maybe half a mile, and you arrive at the base of a little cliff, maybe 45 or 50 feet high, but it's at the top of a hill, which is at the height of land on Route 4 in Vermont. So when you get up to the base of the cliff, and certainly when you get to the top of the cliff, you have a view over a variety of hills and dales in mid-Vermont, and it's just gorgeous. But one of the things about this cliff at Deer Leap is it's extremely exposed, which is a climbing term for when you're up there, you know you're up there. You really see down a long way. And even though it's a relatively short cliff, it can be pretty confronting. So Lucy and I climbed to the top of the cliff. I set an anchor up at the top, which means I set up a way for us to hang a rope over the edge. And I had taken a number of courses on how do you set anchors and how do you be a good, safe setter of an environment for rock climbing. So I felt pretty confident in my anchor. And then we walked back down to the bottom so Lucy could climb up with me belaying her on the rope. And a belay is a process where the rope goes up through a pulley, comes back down to the climber. And so if the climber falls while she's climbing, she's not going to really fall at all. She might dangle a little away from the cliff, and then she can get back onto it. So Lucy starts climbing up the cliff, and maybe within one or two moves, she looks down at me and she says, "I can't do this." And I'm thinking to myself, you are doing it. So I just said, can you look around and do you see any other handholds or footholds around? If you look around. And she looked around and she made a couple more moves, moving up a little higher. And then she looked back down at me again and she was like, "I can't do this." And again, I'm thinking to myself, but you are doing it. So basically, Lucy climbed this entire 50-foot cliff, stopping every now and then, saying how she couldn't do it, and then kind of re-engaging with a little bit of very gentle encouragement from me. And I love this story because to me, it is such a profound metaphor for feeling safe to work at the edge of your expertise. So Lucy was new to rock climbing. This was not a very difficult climb, though, as I mentioned, it was kind of exposed. But with the reassurance that she had a good safety system in place, that she had her pal, me, helping her and guiding her, she was able to move up. One of the things that psychological safety provides is the space for us as learners and teachers, spouses or partners, team leaders, team members, to feel each other's presence in a way that can be positive, salutary, relaxing, or even, exhilarating, but in a way that lets us move up whatever that challenge is. So, what is psychological safety? I am going to out myself as a huge fan of Dr. Amy Edmondson from Harvard Business School, who has really promulgated most of the new and interesting research in this space, and or her students over the last 20-something years. And Amy defines psychological safety as my felt sense that this environment is safe for interpersonal risk-taking, by which I believe she means if I speak up or ask a question or admit I don't know or try something risky, I will be supported in doing so, and I will not feel humiliated, and I will not feel shamed. I'm going to expand that a little bit as we talk over the next weeks to include my sense of physical safety as well. And we may talk a bit about identity safety, which is, do I feel safe to be me in this context, given my gender, given my race, given my sexual orientation, given my professional status within a team, etc. So with these pieces in place, a story about a friend who worked at the edge of what she felt safe doing, I think in part because of psychological safety, not just physical safety. And given Amy Edmondson's definition of psychological safety, this week's readiness goal is inviting you to be ready to notice those moments in your day when you do feel psychologically safe, even if the situation is a little challenging, a little risky, a little edgy. My producer, James Lipshaw, suggested when we were queuing up this episode that one of the interesting things is sometimes you don't notice psychological safety because it's sort of invisible. You're just doing the thing and you feel okay to do the thing. You don't feel threatened. You don't feel worried. Your heart rate's not going up. Your palms are not sweating. So when you get ready to try to start detecting where is psychological safety happening in your day, one of the things you might note is you don't feel threatened. You don't feel scared.
Jenny, I had a funny thought when
Yeah.
we were trying to come up with a metaphor for
Yeah.
like the psych safety thing. It's kind of HVAC for learning. Like if the temperature
Mm.
in the room is perfect, you're not going to notice, but you will absolutely notice if you're too hot or too cold. But the thing that I feel like works in the metaphor is if you don't have HVAC, if you're not actively running it, you're just at the mercy of whatever the local elements are around you. Like, so
Yeah.
if the environment that you're in is too hot, it's going to be too hot. If the environment that you're in is too cold, it's going to be too cold. You're abandoning having a space that is right. So you could be in a toxic culture or you could be in a great culture where you don't need to worry about it, but you're not creating a room where it is controlled.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about what are some of the key elements of psychological safety in learning in everyday life, growing in everyday life, and taking the kind of risks that I find sort of make life most interesting and exciting. And for me, a lot of those risks are, can I name something in an environment where others aren't speaking up? Can I withstand and stay calm when someone is upset with me and find a way to bring some calm and equanimity back to the situation? One of the things I think we're going to come up against and or benefit from is the idea that there's a zone between me and the other person where they are working at the edge of their expertise, or I am working at the edge of my expertise. And what I mean by expertise is not only cognitive expertise, but I'm trying something I'm not really good at yet, or I might not get right. That could be I'm trying a new way of talking, or I'm going to be vulnerable in a way that's kind of gives me the squirmy feeling. Or I'm going to try a new way of dancing or moving. Doesn't really matter what, but edge of expertise can sound a little cognitive, and I just want to make sure we recognize it's the edge of what I'm comfortable doing. At every level, individual, dyad, team, and organization, that zone of proximal development, which is a term coined by Lev Vygotsky to understand the social aspects of learning, is going to be crucial to how we create psychological safety for ourselves and others. So if you think back to my story about Lucy climbing at Deer Leap, that was a physical challenge, but her success in climbing up that and my joy in being part of that was inherently relational. And her zone of proximal development was that she had the skills to move and climb, even though she wasn't an experienced climber. She had an anchor system that kept her safe, but she also had her friend Jenny just encouraging her to keep going. And that zone of proximal development is a situation where I can't quite do it by myself. It's not easy. It's also not impossible for me. It's just at the edge of my capability. And we're going to explore a lot about the role of being there for each other, having each other's back when we're trying something new. The other thing we're going to talk about throughout this series is a concept, which is psychological safety is about being safe, but not soft. And that terminology, safe but not soft, was coined in a really potent way by Victoria Brazel in a IceNet blog post she did a number of years ago. And it really stuck with me because I think it captures the dilemma and a lot of the heated conversations that we have in current culture and politics about how much do we need to protect each other from difficult conversations? How much can we have them? Do we need to have trigger warnings? Does every situation have to be completely comfortable? And my answer is absolutely not. Every situation does not have to be completely comfortable. So what we're going to be exploring in the area of psychological safety is how do we help people feel safe to be uncomfortable? And to me, that's the interesting boundary between kind of bubble wrapping people versus letting them struggle with the desirable difficulties of living. And we'll talk a little bit about the concept of a desirable difficulty, which is a learning concept that lets us know that when we're struggling with something, that's the edge of our capabilities. That's putting us in that zone of proximal development. And that's just where we need to be.
Jenny, your rock climbing example was just making me think like what I always have in my head, and I'll talk for a minute about when I was teaching middle school, is it's not supposed to feel easy, but if you feel like you're going to die, you can't keep climbing. Right? It's not supposed to feel easy, but you're not supposed to feel like you're about to die. Sometimes the thing that's holding people up is not that they don't actually know what to do, but that like that feeling of this is too hard is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. I love that, James. And there's something about creating that either relational connection / relational container that allows them to feel like they can move forward. The other thing I think about is I took a course on flow last year with Stephen Kotler and Rian Doris. And one of the things they taught us was that it's often really hard to get going unless you have a very tiny, tiny, very, very specific step. And I think part of what you might have done as a teacher has been like, hey, first, rewrite the equation. Or, I think part of what I was doing with Lucy was, hey, can you just look around and see if you can find a foothold or a handhold? thinking about climbing up 40 feet might have been overwhelming, but she could certainly look for the next handhold.
Yeah, we use a lot of things like sentence scaffolds, where I might give you the first three words of the first thing that you're going to say, especially for my students who are learning English,
Yeah.
um, and say, okay, I've given you the first half of the sentence, now finish the sentence. Which is funny because I know for a lot of writers, this I heard this anecdotally as the Hemingway rule, which is never stop writing at the end of a thought. Stop
Mm,
writing halfway through a sentence, you know how it's going to end. So tomorrow, when you pick up your pen to start writing again, you already know what the next words you're going to write are. You don't need to stare at a blank page.
right. And so connecting that feeling of momentum to psychological safety, or moments where we can help someone else or someone else can help us in the zone of proximal development where we couldn't do it by ourselves. I think part of what that relational connection gives us is the ability to lean into something that we might not normally lean into, which is in a way a form of momentum.
Yeah.
Um, love that. So let's pivot and talk about our workout of the week this week. What we're going to be doing over the next weeks together is strengthening our ability to detect and project psychological safety, to create it for ourselves and create it for other people. So I want to start us off this week with strengthening that detection system. And the workout of the week revolves around detecting pockets of psychological safety. So as you go through your day, notice moments when you might feel comfortable asking a question, or someone admits uncertainty, or a mistake is treated as something to explore rather than to punish. Or maybe someone expresses curiosity rather than judgment to you, or maybe you do. In those moments, if you just pause for a second and ask yourself, what is making this feel psychologically safe right now? Or what is happening in this moment of psychological safety? So your workout of the week is find moments of psychological safety and try to describe what's going on. Workout of the week, find moments of psychological safety and try to describe what's going on. So thanks for spending some time with us. Curious Now is produced at the Center for Medical Simulation by James Lipshaw, and I look forward to talking with you again next week. If you're intrigued by what we're discussing here, you may be interested in our Leading with Good Judgment coaching service led by me, and or any of our training or consulting programs that are adjacent to many of the things we discussed today.
Hello, I am Grace Ng, Senior Director of Atlas Programs at the Center for Medical Simulation. So I wonder if the following situation might sound familiar to you. Say you are a fantastic simulation instructor, and you do amazing debriefings and design fantastic simulation cases. Or maybe you are a healthcare simulation operations professional, and you know how to fix anything and everything that can go wrong in your simulation center. You do such a great job, and you get promoted into a leadership position. And suddenly, you find yourself in very unfamiliar territory, because now you are in charge of people. You are now in charge of budget and finance and facilities and strategy. Or maybe you even need to deal with politics in your greater organization. And you find yourself feeling frustrated and lost, because nobody has ever taught you how to do any of these things. And your skill set that had helped you be successful in your previous role now does not serve you as well anymore. I want you to know you are not alone. Many simulation leaders find themselves in a similar boat. And at the Center for Medical Simulation, we think our Simulation Leadership Intensive course may be right for you. We want to help you develop a set of tools to navigate simulation leadership situations. We want to help you develop your leadership presence. We want you to be able to grow teams that are psychologically safe and motivated to be successful. And we want to help you develop a set of skills to help you navigate politics in your organization. So many of you have taken our simulation instructor courses before, and you've had transformational experience in those courses. And what we offer with our good judgment approach has helped you grow tremendously. Well, here, as you grow, we want to grow right along with you. And we hope you can join our Simulation Leadership Intensive course if this sounds right for you.